Our next thought-provoking speaker is of a completely different kind. Paola Bonini, who is a thinker. She works at the moment for the national television in Italy, and this is the timer. There, perfect. I'll let you know when 20 minutes have gone by, and you will do what you wish with the remaining 10. Thank you.
So, thank you. The keynote from Chris was so inspiring, and now I'm talking about technology. God, lucky you, or lucky me, I don't know. You know, the fact with technology and higher education, or technology in general terms, is that it is horribly fast. And as Mark Zuckerberg used to say, when it did not, back in the times when it did not damage his reputation, it also breaks things. And most of the times, because it is so fast, we struggle to try to discover it, understand it, and then adopt it. And when we've managed to do so, it's already too late, because technology has progressed. We are always late on technology, and this is very frustrating. It's frustrating, and it's not different, I believe, in higher education. University in the last years have evolved. They have introduced new courses, they teach new courses, they have evolved in terms of organization, they have digitalized, they have adopted new tools, they have updated the elder tools they had. But can they really answer, or can they really fulfill the need of the new generations of facing the challenges of the future? Are we really ready to make our students ready to face the challenges of the future that in the best terms we can describe as highly uncertain? Because, you know, as far as the educational goals are concerned today, my idea, my perception is that universities still present their students with a very old promise. Study, and you will have a better job. A better job is a better paid job, a more rewarding job in personal terms, a more satisfying job, a more prestigious one, you know. But the fact is that this very idea, that is not the original idea of the university, is an idea we have been developing in the last few decades, that this very idea today clashes with a couple of observations, a couple of elements. The first one is, I hope, temporary. It's a political one. Today, the learned people are seen as the establishment, and nobody trusts the establishment anymore. So maybe if you went to the university and you studied hard and you graduated, you're not seen as the coolest person in the room anymore, which is very frustrating too, but it's not what I want to talk about today. And the second one, which is a more permanent challenge, is that it's always more difficult to envision what the future will be. So basically, what will a good job be in 5 years? We have basically no idea of what it will be in 5 or 10 years. We know what it is today. It's making money in our world, more or less, or doing something that satisfies you at the end of the day. But will it be so easy, or will it meet these standards in 5 years? Because in the last decades, we have seen a continuous evolution of jobs in terms of technology, in terms of automation only. We have been witnessing, for instance, the automation of blue-collar jobs. It's been going on for decades now. We have been studying it from a political point of view, from a social point of view, from an economic point of view, but always, allow me to say so, with a slight hypocrisy, because it was not our problem. It was not our problem because it was somebody else's one. You're automating the worker's job, the assembly line jobs. Okay, I'm sorry, you're unemployed tomorrow. That's not really my problem, because I studied and my future will be bright all the same. So the fact is that automation has evolved too, and today it's coming for our white-collar jobs. It's coming for intellectual jobs, it's coming for highly invested upon in university jobs. So, and by the way, automating white-collar jobs will be much more easy than automating blue-collar ones, because jobs that deal with data, with informations, are much more easy to be replicated and dealt with better by machines than by human beings. There's not the challenge of dealing with the physical world. Paralegals, stockbrokers, bankers, accountants, and so on. All these are endangered species today, but not only them, because in the meanwhile, we have the experience of dealing with the physical world. So also chefs could be an endangered species, or sports journalists, or financial journalists, or doctors, surgeons. A robotic hand could be much more accurate than a human one, for instance. And artists, you know, like, think about music, the algorithmic composition has always existed. But now you can teach it to an artificial intelligence. They did, and it works, because you can feed an artificial intelligence also the characteristic of what will probably go mainstream, what people will like. So it's a little late, and maybe it's not that correct anymore to say that we can promise students the fact that they will have simply a better job. Then what will happen now? Basically, there are, let's say, I will oversimplify this, but two positions, a very pessimist one, a dystopian one, of what will happen because of the automation, of the technologization, of jobs in the future, and a more optimist one. The very dystopian, the most dystopian one says that we will all die, basically, because when singularity comes, machines will kill us. That's very science fiction movie. That sounds like a science fiction movie. But I'm not very interested in that position, because I believe we will manage to kill ourselves before, if we do not deal with challenges like climate change, for instance. So a more interesting and very scary position is the one you maybe, I believe all of you have read the work of Yuval Noah Harari, who says that automation of jobs will basically create a world where human beings are obsolete, where social inequities will rise and the welfare systems will fail. Why so? Because we built social systems, welfare systems in the 20th century, because the world, the states needed healthy populations. Maybe not because we thought that everyone is born equal and has a right to access to healthcare, to education, and so on, but because we needed healthy population. What for? For production. It had to be fit for factories on the one hand, and ready to become an army. It had to be ready for war. And with a production that very quickly gets completely automated, and a warfare that is very quickly becoming cyber warfare, we don't need those people anymore. So what Harari says, and he and other researchers say, is that we are going towards a society that will be divided in a very tiny ruling class and a huge, useless class, who will probably be very angry about this. There are other researchers and experts in artificial intelligence who are slightly less pessimist, which is not particularly difficult, who ask us to consider that the automation of jobs also brought a lot of very good things. For instance, the eradication of dangerous jobs. Does anybody of you like the idea of gold mining or of disarming an explosive device, for instance? Well, robots can do that for you. Or it could eradicate the repetitive and alienating jobs like working in an assembly line, or could make some jobs much more accurate. I already mentioned surgeons, but also think about doctors in general term, who would be more thorough in giving you a diagnosis according to the symptoms you give a doctor, a human being with a rather limited memory, and fantasy, if you want to put it that way, or an artificial intelligence which you can feed all the knowledge about health in the world. So what experts like Jeremy Kaplan or others say is we are not going towards extinction if we are not doing that ourselves. We are going to a different landscape, a different jobs landscape. We must think about the new needs and the new jobs, basically. Like what? What are our new needs? These are just some examples. Climate change reversal specialist, automation editor, trash engineer. We produce like 3 billion pounds trash every year. Somebody has to deal with it. These are jobs that do not exist today. No, you don't have artificial intelligence personality writers today, but probably you will have them in the future. At the end of the day, we don't know if these are reasonable examples, not all of the examples. At the end of the day, we don't know. We have no idea of what the future jobs will be. Me, myself, I am a specialist in an area that did not exist, digital media, that did not exist when I went to the university 30 years ago. It just didn't exist. So my story is the same. I didn't know that I would do this job because my job didn't exist. So let's go back to the beginning. What should be the offer on a university to the students, to the new generations be? Is it enough to say, study and you'll have a better job? No, because we don't know what a better job will mean. But maybe it's time to change and go back to the future and tell people that and start again or build on the idea of educating for the sake of educating, for shaping better, not better professionals, just better persons. And in this area, as far as technology is concerned, this is because better person may mean a lot of things. A better person is someone who is more ready, more versatile, who has more intellectual potential, but also who has developed soft skills, for instance, and who is more resilient in the end. A better person in these terms is someone who does not chase change. It is someone that does anticipate it, that does understand it, and is ready to deal with it. So, in this kind of thinking, this kind of system would also help in another way. It would also lead us back to an idea of university as the places where, together, we could help face the global challenges, because we have a lot to face, like already mentioned climate change, but not only that, democracies, growth of population, global economics, exploration of space, whatever you want to put in it, could be better dealt with a collaborative effort from the persons who study these things, from the persons who are helping others and are getting contaminated by students to become better persons. What are the skills that will be useful in this scenario? Well, I didn't write the slide. You know that these skills are the ones that the World Economic Forum says you need to thrive, not in a very remote future, but in 2020. What are the skills? Complex problem solving, critical thinking, many of those skills were mentioned in these 3 days. Emotional intelligence, the capacity of coordinating with others, of negotiating with them. What have all the skills have in common? They are human skills. They are skills that rely on human features and, as for today, are not replicable by machines. What we need for tomorrow, what we need for embracing technology is investing of what technology cannot afford, being human. And as far as the population of the students is concerned, let's not forget that the students are different from what we were 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. They have an extended mind. What do I mean with this? They call them the way you want, digital natives, Generation Z. Probably the current definition is Generation Z, the ones who today are ready to go to the university. Even this is not just a problem of higher education, but of schooling in more broad terms. Addiction. I was discussing this morning with friends. Teenagers are addicted to the smartphones. Neuroscientists are telling us that they are not particularly addicted, that we maybe are addicted to smartphones. They are not addicted. They're just hybridating because devices are becoming extensions of their body and they're becoming extensions of their minds. Does this scare you? Maybe it does, but devices, digital devices, are taking over some of the functions of the human mind, like memory. And if you find this weird, think about last time you had to memorize a telephone number. Think about last time you had to dial a telephone number. That's quite like 20 years ago. These people are not used to occupying lots of their minds with trivial things like memorizing a telephone number. So what we could do with those free slots of minds, maybe we could invest on the skills we were mentioning before. And here is where technology comes to our help, because technology can be very creative. Different steps. The first one, maybe one of the most difficult for university, is opening up. Because for collaboration, for co-creation, for growing up, for cultivating your skills, you have to have access to resources. And that's very difficult. That would be the first step. We are dealing with a generation of people who has continuous access to limitless networks. But this is difficult for university because this means business, obviously. We are talking open access to the university resources, to academic journals, to scientific journals, and so on. And this is not very easy. The ones of you who remember the story of Aaron Swartz know how problematic this and tragic sometimes this can be. But open access to resources could give the keys of challenging problems to people who had the skills to understand them, but cannot afford those resources. And further educational resources for journalists, for researchers, for curious citizens. And open data. If all of the institutions, of the academic institutions, of the cities, of the territorial institution would open their data, it would be more easy to face the global challenges altogether, because that's what we need. Just the first step. Then there is a very delicate step of online courses. They already exist, but the model of online courses should be questioned in some way, because online courses are in themselves a great opportunity. They are sustainable, they are open, they are affordable, they don't know borders. And basically, they can be very inclusive because they don't know borders, they don't know race, they don't know gender. Think about places in the third world where women, where girls cannot study. Potentially, online courses could change this. But today, they are conceived as a way of, let me put it this way, more or less enriching the universities, reflecting the model of universities today. They look for more students, but then what do they give them? Quality of the courses sometimes. When there is a high quality, usually these courses are not affordable. And if they are affordable and have a high quality, usually they give you certificates you can do anything with that are basically useless. The same thing is making things quicker is true for digital universities, the ones who have not a physical presence but basically do the same thing. Then we have devices, we have tools and we have methods. Tools, we have devices that can be really precious. We already spoke about smartphones, for instance, or smartphones today, tomorrow it could be wearables or other kinds of devices. They are very interesting because they allow students to create their own learning patterns. They facilitate the non-linear thinking. With hypertexts and with multimedia, you can decide how to trigger your path towards knowledge. And then there is probably the next big thing will be mixed reality. We've been knowing virtual reality and augmented reality for years in gaming, then in arts, and more recently in news. There are lots of applications of like New York Times and so on who use augmented reality. And again, this can help people to immerse in the subject they are studying. Holograms are also very interesting because it could augment professors, make sure that professors teach their classes and at the same time appear as a hologram in my room or in my hospital room, talking about inclusion. And just to reassure you, the job of the professor is the one less likely to be substituted by machines, just because a professor needs the skills we were mentioning before. But professors can be helped supported by artificial intelligence, who could easily, for instance, translate in real time what they're saying, and translate also in the language of the signs what they are saying, always to be very inclusive. Then there are the methods. All these devices and all these tools allow you to personalize the learning path of students, to rely on the skills or on their superpowers in the case. Then there is gamification. It's basically what I'm doing here by showing you still frames from movies and TV series. I'm challenging you to recognize them and to guess why I associated the single still frames to the concepts. And gamification can be very useful because it transformed the courses into experiences which are easier to be memorized. So, first conclusion, the creative knowledge experience, what I do see in the future is an idea of university that bases on an experience, that allows people to make an experience that is as much creative as possible and it is as much shared as possible. I probably have a couple of minutes left. Allow me to say one last thing. It's just a suggestion. But what I've described is a world where basically there are no physical barriers anymore. There are no borders. So why can't we think about really grinding borders? Let's take, I'm going towards the idea of putting university together with policymakers. Think about a couple of experiences that already happened in the world. The first one is the digital citizenship in Estonia. If you want to make business in Estonia, you can apply for digital citizenship, which is not a right, it's a privilege, but it's like a 20 minutes process online. And then you can assess you are an e-citizen of Estonia and you can access all the services. It's conceived for business, okay? So it's a win-win for Estonia and for the persons who want to do business there. And think about the way the Obama administration tried to face the issue of the dreamers. With the deferred action for childhood arrivals, they made a law saying that if you are an illegal immigrant, an unlawful immigrant in the United States, but you're right there as a child, you can ask for a deferral in deportation, and you ask for a working permit. So I'm thinking, why can't we think about some models where the idea of that you studied abroad virtually, studying remotely from another country, why couldn't this become an element of appraisal for applying for, let's say, a visa of that country, or a working permit in that country, or, God forbid, citizenship in that country? Why can't we think about a way of connecting knowledge through technology and policy making to make a real difference in the world? Because in a world that today is always more frequently talking about building walls and closing borders, I think that would be a nice way to say that knowledge is the one tool that grinds borders and not just virtually. Thank you.
I see a pattern here. Oh, wow. Okay, more intense. You did take me off literally. I said I want a really provocative, thought-moving talk. Okay. I will not take questions, I'm sorry. But hold them, write them down, that would be wonderful.